Welcome to Iraqi Dinar Update, your go-to source for the latest news, expert insights, and real-time developments on Iraq's currency, economy, and financial reforms. Whether you're a long-time investor or just curious about the dinar, you're in the right place. There is a deeply rooted belief among many of us who have been following the monetary developments in Iraq that what we are witnessing is not a future event, but rather the final phases of something that has already quietly occurred behind the scenes. You can call it a revaluation, you can call it a reinstatement, or you can refer to it as a reintroduction of Iraq's original economic position on the global financial stage. But in my view, the distinction matters. Because I don't see this as a revaluation, RV, in the way most people think about it today, something sudden, announced, and shocking. No, I believe this is actually a reinstatement, an RI, of Iraq's currency back to its rightful position, long prepared for and perhaps already in limited or indirect motion for quite some time. In fact, in my opinion, the true revaluation, if we're to be technical about it, happened many years ago. I would place that window somewhere between 5 and 7 years ago. That's when I believe the decision was made, the agreements were signed, the frameworks were developed, and the key elements were set in motion to fundamentally shift Iraq's monetary policy, its central banking structure, and its currency valuation model. This wouldn't necessarily have been done in public, nor would the rate change have been openly reflected in the CBI's published figures at that time. But what if I told you that, from a strategic and operational standpoint, the rate was already recalibrated internally or among key international partners? Yes, that may sound bold. I understand the skepticism. I've heard it before. Oh, sure, Frank. Oh, sure. Oh, sure. It's the sarcastic tone many people take when they encounter a position like mine, one that veers away from what's printed in official documents and toward what might be seen only through analysis of indirect indicators, trade behavior, foreign exchange flow, institutional behavior, or global monetary alignments. And you know what? I welcome that doubt. Because this isn't a theory I'm asking anyone to blindly accept. It's my opinion. It's a position I've arrived at after years of following Iraq's economic developments, the policies of the Central Bank of Iraq, CBI, the actions of the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the surrounding geopolitics of the region. Why is it my opinion? Because when you piece together all of the scattered elements, all the policy changes, all the reforms, all the subtle shifts in institutional relationships, none of it truly makes sense unless you consider the possibility that a new exchange rate is already in place, albeit unannounced or unpublicized in the formal sense. Otherwise, how do we explain the depth and scale of banking reforms in Iraq? How do we make sense of the rigorous digitization of Iraq's payment infrastructure, the complete overhaul of its foreign remittance systems, the tighter alignment with global anti-money laundering protocols, and the introduction of IBAN systems? These are not isolated adjustments. They are foundational changes. If you assume that Iraq is simply trying to modernize a currency that still floats at around 1,310 to the dollar, without any intent or progress toward a higher value exchange rate, the scale of reform doesn't match the reality on the ground. These kinds of reforms, transparent cross-border payments, digital wallets, upgraded SWIFT integrations, stronger correspondent banking relationships, and a full embrace of global AML or KYC standards, don't typically happen in a vacuum. They are the kinds of reforms that nations implement when preparing for or managing a significant realignment in the value of their currency on the global stage. You see, the evidence is subtle, scattered, and often intentionally obscured. This is why many observers remain frustrated, skeptical, or outright dismissive. They are looking for one singular, dramatic moment, an announcement, a press conference, a sudden update on the CBI website that shows a completely different exchange rate. But if you believe, as I do, that Iraq's leadership is playing the long game with precision and caution, then such an announcement may never come in the way most expect. Instead, we may find ourselves in a situation where, one day, that rate is simply confirmed, publicly visible in a way it never was before, but only after it's already been in effect under limited or managed conditions. It's entirely possible that Iraq has already introduced this rate in select areas, perhaps within government-to-government contracts, in certain oil trade settlements, or even within specific sectors of the Iraqi economy such as construction or international logistics. These forms of shadow revaluation are not unprecedented. Countries have done this before, employing a tiered or dual exchange rate system as a stepping stone toward full reinstatement. Iraq could have one official rate for the public and a separate internal or negotiated rate for large institutional or governmental exchanges. That second rate may not be publicly acknowledged or published, but its effects would ripple across the economy if you knew where to look. To the casual observer, the indicators might appear contradictory or confusing. But if you start from the premise that the new exchange rate already exists in a latent form, quietly being used in corridors of trade and governance where transparency is optional, then the entire picture starts to make more sense. You can see why the CBI would be working so closely with international financial entities, why the IMF and World Bank continue to issue favorable reform reviews, why the U.S. Treasury remains actively involved in auditing Iraq's banking practices, and why so many private banks in Iraq have been sidelined or sanctioned when they refuse to comply with the new systems being enforced. It's not just about fighting corruption, though that's certainly a stated goal. It's about aligning all participants with a preset model designed to support a higher-valued, more stable currency. And then there's the matter of missing variables, data points that aren't available to the public, decisions made behind closed doors, foreign reserves movements that don't always get reported, or contractual clauses in international oil sales that are never fully disclosed. All of these variables could be concealing the truth, that Iraq is no longer operating on the outdated model we see displayed on currency converter websites. Until then, most will continue to doubt. That's fine. Most won't believe it until they see it. But for those paying attention, the signs are already there. You just have to look past the noise, past the published rates, and into the behaviors of institutions, the alignment of policies, and the structure of reforms. You have to connect the dots. So when people say, "Oh sure, you believe they've already been using the new rate," I simply nod. I do believe it. Because for me, it's the only explanation that makes all the pieces fit. Everything else requires too much inconsistency. But this theory, this perspective, it makes it all make sense. Thanks for tuning in to Iraqi Dinar Update. If you found this content helpful, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a beat on Iraq's evolving financial landscape. Stay informed and stay ready.